So my name is Bright Yeboah. I'm co-founder of Yflix and also doubling as the COO of the business. So this morning, connecting with you, I have three main goals on my mind. It's rather unfortunate that I am not in the country, not for any reason, deciding to connect, virtually with, very experienced people that I respect so much in this room. But let me start it this way. There's a picture on this slide that I can't even navigate at the moment for you to see. And the tech team helped me following the slide as I go ahead with my submission. So my first goal on this call today is to speak to you on what I have titled Leveraging Tech and Innovation to Create Wealth in Ghana, particularly in Africa as a whole. And my first goal is to demystify the myth surrounding wealth creation. Exactly, now I can see. So you can be flipping it for me as I go into the presentation. Then number two, to challenge you to see what is possible in Ghana and in Africa amidst all the enormous economic challenges that bedevil us as a people. And the third one is to challenge you to do more as young people. I'm speaking to all of you, including the elderly, but I believe people under 40 years is really going to connect with me more as I move forward. So picture number one talks about, if you look at it, I don't know what comes to your mind, but the way I see this is more like a teamwork, strategic partnership, and people coming together to achieve a particular goal or aim. And I believe that is one thing that is lacking in the business world in Africa, a lot more collaboration and strategic partnership to achieve whatever endeavor that we have before us. Picture number two is a major issue the way I see it, picturing a boss sitting at the top and always demanding results from the team with very little involvement. And we see this happen mostly in the public sector, except very few who have distinguished themselves, when they had leadership, to lead people like Prof and the likes, Juliet and Klebo in the room. And look at the picture downstairs, leader who on his own leading his team and driving the team to achieve a particular goal or dream. My question to you, young people in this room, is which of these leaders do you normally meet in your duty of job in Ghana and in Africa, wherever you have been? It seems to be the boss sitting at the top, mostly the case, until recently that we have seen real leadership, helping us to drive the course and the agenda of our country, Ghana. I'm here in the United States because we are raising funds. We are talking to VCs in Silicon Valley. I didn't know that Njaro wasn't sector agnostic. I could have spoken to him, but one thing I have realized is that we keep saying that the opportunity is in Africa. If it is so, and we all believe that, how come the investment is sitting in the US, in Europe, and other places? Seems to be the norm for now, but some of us are trying in our own way to change this narrative. Can we move to the next slide, please? Now, the way I think about wealth creation, since it's the topic of the day, is essentially accumulation of scarce resources by a person. It could be a community, a country, or whatever form it takes. Now, it is not only in the area of financials or money, because that seems to be our focus whenever we talked about wealth creation. I have seen people gathering this in the area of relationship, in the area of physical health, in the area of mental health, in the area of time and freedom. At the end of the day, what you're seeking to do is to buy freedom and buy time by way of the wealth you are creating. I tell people most of the time that money is a terrible master but an excellent servant. And as we go deeper into this presentation, you will understand why I believe strongly in this. So point number one, each one of us in this room invests in a financial product or service for a long period of time. And one thing on your mind is to recoup higher return on your investment. It seems to be the reverse in Africa, Ghana particularly, and the continent we come from, because our minds are skewed towards short-term return on investments. So you see a lot more people, deep pocket guys, going into trade, import and export that give them very quick return on their investment. Very least or little has been said about the creative sector, which I am going to focus on, as you have heard from Juliet and Uncle Lebo and Njaro. Now, how do you create a product that people can actually pay money for, buy your product in Ghana at the moment as a young person? A few ideas that we have tested the market, not just in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Zambia, soon in South Africa. That has given us that exponential growth that today we are looking at over 1 million consuming originally created African content on one platform called Yflix. And that is what I run. Going through this whole process, I have learned, unlearned, and mastered courage to develop the skill set to speak to VCs and people who matter and paying attention to the sector, which is why we've been able to raise nearly $200,000 in just about 24 months of our operations. What I will say on wealth creation for any young people under 40 in this room is that focus on developing the required skill set before you go into any venture. Yes, you're going to learn on the job, but the basics you must know. And look at mentorship as well. That is going to help you with some longevity on your mind as you journey on your business. Next slide, please. Now, over the years, I have focused my working career in mainstream media, tech, and telecoms. My over 16 years of experience span, from these areas, and that is where I have dominance, which we have developed this Yflix idea that people see today. So the fourth industrial revolution that the speaker who spoke previously on AI before I'm speaking describes a rapid change in technology, industry, and society. This has happened really fast, at a very fast pace in our sector. And we most of the time see Africa playing the catch-up role. We are always catching up to the revolution and what is happening in the world. I bet to say we don't have to allow this fourth revolution to speed up on us as young people. We don't have to catch up. We need to play the game in itself, as some of us have taken the lead. And how have we achieved that? In 3 major areas: using AI, using virtual reality, and using social media. Has brought us this far, and I believe as a brand Yflix today, if you mention us or Google us on any platform, we have attained global recognition. We've put in Ghana on the map, and now when people are talking about OTT streaming, Yflix is in there somewhere for them to consider. How did you do this? Building social presence with a service, focusing on the 3 kings of SEO, optimization in our game. We have strategically positioned the brand to partake in this, global Black Founders Fund that is available on the continent that many African Black entrepreneurs shy away from. It's free for your taking. Just prove yourself, and you can have access to this, type of fund. Google Cloud programming, funding, and grants available for startups in Africa, just to support you scale your business to a certain level. I am a typical example. What we have done today is courtesy Google. Over 200,000 grants, put in our business the first year of our operations in Ghana, which is why we are able to grow as fast as you can see. I mentioned earlier that we've raised nearly $200,000 in just about 2 months of operation. And at the moment, we are valued at $25 million as a business. And this was done by Deloitte. We are actually raising $2.5 million, which is why I'm here in the US talking to VCs to ensure that we close some of these deals. And it's been a very difficult journey for us. But the good thing is, if people like us in Ghana are able to do it, my encouragement to young people in this room today is to believe that you can also do it. Next slide, please. Now, I said earlier that our focus has been on the creative art and entertainment industry, building a platform like YFlix, focusing on the African continent, changing the narrative one after the other. If we believe the opportunities, the potential, the stories are in Africa, why have we left the Western people to tell the story for us as Africans? YFlix is in this game to change that narrative. We are, at the moment, pushing over 30,000 hours of content on YFlix platform. 70% of these content that people are consuming is African content from Ghana, from Nigeria, from Kenya, across board. The film industry accounts for 5 billion of African GDP, and it estimates to employ 5 million people by 2027. Juliet Yasantua shared, very interesting statistics on this one. I don't want to bore you with that. The arts, entertainment, and recreation industry in Ghana employs over 14,000 people as we speak. What we have done on our part as YFlix is set up a post-production hub, and this is what is lacking, and Juliet can confirm that. The creativity is there. We are able to film quality movies, but when it comes to sound of the work we put out, is always a problem for us, which is why the big platforms that I don't want to mention name on this platform sometimes fail to accept work from Ghana, to put on their global, platform for people to consume and actually pay money for. We have done the reverse in helping these young creative distributors, aggregators in the sector to master their work, meeting the bar to a certain level for global acceptance and recognition. And if you check on us, you can see some of the titles created in Africa with a certain kind of quality, Dolby backed, kind of production. The OTT industry, again, like I said, is a very massive business that I have seen young people like Wademaya using just YouTube. Recently, he celebrated over 1 million, and this guy is making decent living just creating content on YouTube. This is an avenue for young guys to go into that area with very little, investment. I mentioned about how much we have invested so far, in our business and where we are going with the 2.5 million rates. Next slide, please. Now, this slide you see here got me thinking as a young person receiving salary, back in 2019, I guess, I think. The OTT industry is set to generate 2 billion by 2027. When I saw this stat, it really caught me thinking, struck me deeply. Why? Because I read somewhere in the article that this whole investment is a split between South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya that I did not include on this slide. So I asked myself as a young Ghanaian, thinking of going into streaming, content monetization, this idea did not start today. We were some of the pioneers who supported MTN in their audio conferencing. And the time people were thinking of Facebook, we're also thinking in our own way how people can creatively monetize African content on a global platform. And now the dream is here. So how do we do this? If the split is going to be between South Africa, Nigeria, and Egypt, going into this sector is going to be very tough for me. But look at what we have achieved. Partnering, again, the strategic partnership I talked about with the telecom companies in Africa. In Ghana, we are operational on MTN and Vodafone. In Nigeria, on MTN. In Kenya, on South Africa. Creating value for the business and the type of content we have on our platform. We started off in just about 40,000 users, and today we are talking 1 million of cumulative paid subscriptions on the platform, generating over 600,000 USD month in revenues. So clearly, this is a venture that has come to stay, and we know that with the necessary or the required investment coming into play, as we have started raising 2.5 million, there's a lot we can achieve to support the sector and get our people to, be gainfully employed and earn decent money from the value they create from their craft. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. So the problem we are solving is in two folds. The first one is focusing on the consumer in Africa. And the other side is focusing on the creative people themselves, the partners, the filmmakers, the distributors, the aggregators. It's not because there's no content in Africa. Over decades, African content has been undervalued for various reasons, simply because there's no single platform where people can market, sell, and use the African content. And that is the kind of distribution channel we have created for the African continent. And gradually, our own people are beginning to believe, in the potential of the platform we are created and the transparency behind the metrics that goes into the calculation of royalties, revenue shares, and what is due our people. So essentially, what we are doing is to localize payment, localize payment options, localize African content by way of democratizing it for our people, on a global platform for people to have access to. My joy is to see a woman in Wenchi, Tra, or Sunyani, somewhere there, on her phone, able to reach the newest movie that was launched at Silverbird Cinema the next day on her phone. And that is where we are going with this YFlix idea. Next slide, please. Now, the solution, like I said, is pretty simple. Localizing content for our people, telecom integration, and localizing payment. This we have done over the past 24 months, proving our worth in the sector, have gained the recognition that we deserve, and scaling gradually to put the business to another level. Over 30,000 hours of content, like I said, all of this African content plus 10 live streaming channels. Next slide, please. Our customer groupings, like I said, is very simple. We are not targeting the top tier people that the big players are looking at, but the mass market, the mid to low tier consumers in Africa, who do not have much disposable income, but when they see quality content, they can tell. These are the people. ACN, a stockkeeper, as you can see here, MFA, a student. All of these guys have access to content, but the question is, what are they consuming at the moment on their phones, on YouTube and other platforms? YFlix has changed that narrative, and we keep changing that gradually, a step at a time. Next slide. Now, the opportunity is vast. Like I said, 3 years, we have targeted a single contract, with all these telecom companies at group level who are helping us to reach out to their consumers by way of serving them the kind of creative content we have on our platform, and also bundling data on top of that for people to stream more and come again. So we are not just serving content on the African continent, because we know how expensive internet is on the continent. So we bundle data with our content to serve the users we have in all the regions I have mentioned that we are operational in at the moment. Over 48.2 million, market size that we are looking. Our goal really is to grab just 1% of this 2.6 million market size that we are, in to compete. Nigeria at the moment forms over 78% of our revenues and the user base on the platform. And there's a good reason to that, because if we did not scale and expand rapidly as we started and focus on one market as a business, I'm not sure I will be in business today. The next slide. Now, the opportunity again in the film sector, I heard Yas Santua talk extensively about the screens that is available in Africa. If you look at this from Central Africa down to West Africa, clearly it tells you the number of screens we have in West Africa alone, and the population, that's against the population, and how much titles we are able to screen and produce in the continent. Of course, there's a lot more work that we have to do in the sector. People have not invested in this sector because the return on their investment is never guaranteed. They spend so much money into production and they don't get their money back. We are trying to change that narrative to get the sector, the investment sector, to look at this and know that now there's a distribution platform that is transparent. And once you put your investment in, your return on that investment is guaranteed. The next slide. So how do we achieve this? I said we are working with content partners across the globe, as I have listed here. over 30,000 hours of content, and we are working in partnership with, Warner Media, Dolby, Sony Pictures, Media Guru, Turning Point Pictures that we recently signed on, and all of that. Every single title you find on YFlix has the required rights to stream the content on our platform legally from the source, as we have already acquired, to stream, working within the confines of the regions and the territories that the producer or director actually want us to stream the title, and is doing amazingly well. Next slide, please. So how are we different? I'm sure by now, a lot of you in the room are thinking that this service is almost like Netflix. Yes, it is true. But the difference is that we acquire content as a zero or low cost from these content producers that we work with. We have a simple revenue share model that work across all the partners I mentioned on the previous slide, that out of trust and the transparency of the business we run, they are able to give us their A-listed content to monetize on the platform for revenue share. We do minimum guarantee in cases where we have to, depending on the type of content we are looking at, and the reach of that particular title. So that is the difference between YFlix and some other platforms. We don't outrightly acquire content. We do purely revenue share and also bundle data for our users and localized payment. We don't demand email for registration on the platform as well. It's purely your mobile phone number and we are up and streaming. The next slide, please. Now, our business model is very simple at the moment. We have localized payment, like I said, for our users across all the opcos that we are in, daily, weekly, monthly fashion for people in all the countries we are operating, and a bundle service available for the diaspora market. If they want, you pay just $2.99 and you can enjoy the over 30,000 hours of content we have on the platform. Next slide. I think I've talked about how different we are. Our target market, our operational model, and the data we have discounted as value addition for our consumers by virtue of working the relationship we have with these telecom companies that we work with. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the vision is clear as we have started this journey and building on top of the million we have already accumulated. Accessibility to the right content, affordability to the originality of African creative, and the flexibility of how people can easily reach and access the African originally created content that we have accumulated on one single platform. That is the vision for YFlix, and I believe we have started this really well. The next slide, please. Forgive me if I'm rushing this. So the team is myself and my partner who is based in the Netherlands. We are both Ghanaians raised in Ghana. Work extensively in Ghana, telecoms, media, across board. We understand the Ghanaian market really well and also the African perspective, and which is why we've been able to push this agenda to this level. And I believe people like Juliet and Uncle Yeboah really know about this story even when we started, and keenly watching on to see where we are going with this, whole idea. Next slide. Thank you for having me and giving me the time after all the technical hitches and all of that. My last word to young people in this room is that no one cares about your passion. It's not enough to have just passion, but dare to dream, acquire the relevant skill that can help you take your business to the next level. Thank you. I am happy to take questions if I have any in the room. Thank you.